Okay, so today we are going to get on with the module 6. You already have seen the first video, which is about Android Studio, and I just showed how an Hello World display can be made in your Android Studio programming, and you had seen the basic interfaces that happened over there. You saw the Android emulator and all. So this basically, this module will be covering about whatever you saw in the Android Studio. All those things would be briefly explained over here. You have to learn about the application structure, Android Manifest Dot Xml uses permission, uses SDK, layouts, drawable resources for SAML application, emulator, UI design, and all those kind of things. And then we'll learn about Android app development in a small way. So basically, you can see that this particular topic starts off with the application structure, and you can see that we have to read through these notes to get a concept of it. But then you can see that there are so many files and folders mentioned over here, like src, genres, drawable, layout values, etc. So one thing that you need to understand is this is a note I had prepared for the first batch of the KTU, and for an exam point of view, this is fine. You can learn this and go and appear for the exam. It wouldn't be difficult, or rather it should be easy. But the thing that you have to understand is this Android is an evolving software or an operating system. Like the Pi, it was running till 2019, and then we have seen the evolution of Android 10. So this entire software evolves and changes on itself. So everything that is explained over here might have a variance in the current Android operating studio. So there will be a basic difference. In the basic totality, the concepts applied or seen here will be there in Android Studio, but there would be minor differences about where each folder is available and the location shift and all. So this is prepared on basis of a package explorer that is given over here. You can see that src zgen is there, and you have the rest folder over here and all these kind of things. Now, when you look at this Hello World app for S6EC that we had done yesterday, when you open this particular folder, you can see that there are minor differences. It is not exactly in the way that we saw the package explorer over there. Now, the basic folders over here, like app, and in this folder, you can see your SRC over here. And then, for example, we had our the folder that was mentioned over here, like res. Now it will be seen where we'll search for this particular res folder over here, and you can see that it comes inside the src, and inside src you will have the main, and there you have your res folder and java folder, and also you can see that it is having a minor shift in the location and all, but still the essential idea is the same. Now you can go through these notes to understand what is the function of each of these folders, and that would make up the application structure. Now, coming to the next topic, the major files in an Android project, you will have to learn first about Android Manifest.xml. So this is a basic Android definition file, and it will give information regarding the minimum Android version that is to be supported, the main layout XML, the activity class, and all those kind of things are available in this main component as of an Android program. Now, we'll specifically look into what an Android manifest file is. So this is an example of the Android manifest file. We'll look into what are the elements over here, but please understand few facts over here. Now, this is a structure for the Android manifest file, and you can start that it has some keywords being used. Now, this keyword has got a start block and an end block over here. So whatever is defined in this block will be considered for the particular program. So it begins with the manifest keyword, which ends over here. It has got an application keyword over here, which ends over here. You have the activity, which ends here, and you have an intent filter, which ends over here. And so we have to learn about intent first to move ahead with this topic. So I'll be discussing about the concepts of intent right away. So this video will also be shared in your AES, so you can have a full look into it. So basically what we have done right now is create an app which has an activity of displaying hello world. So it was a single page app, or it just had a single activity in it. So now there would be applications, or like you use different applications right now which moves from one activity to another. So if you want to consider WhatsApp as an example, you have your chat, your status, and your calls that is available in as separate tabs. So you have your chat over there. So when you move from chat, or what you see as chat over there is one activity, and what you see as status is another activity, and what you see as your calls could be treated as another activity. So when you press the status button, it moves to the next activity. So what I'm conveying here is that what we did earlier was an app that had a single activity, and obviously different applications have different activities or many activities. So we'll look into a case where we are looking into this scenario, looking into a case where there is multiple activities. So as seen over here, you have an activity 1, you have an activity 2, and an activity 3 over here. Now they need to communicate with each other. So to communicate with each other, we are using this thing called intent. So let me make it clear. Intent is used to communicate, or it is an entity that helps in communication between two activities. I hope that point is clear. So to make things short, we'll look into this slide or point right now. So intent can be treated as a messaging object which can be used to request an action from one app component to another. Intent facilitates communication between different components, and intents are basically classified into two types: explicit and implicit. Now, to get ahead with what is explicit intent, it is basically facilitating communication between two activities inside the same application. So what happens here, you can treat an example of WhatsApp over here. So you have a chat um activity over there, and then you have the status activity. So when you move from chat to status, it basically is conducted by the explicit intent, which supports communication between two activities inside the same application. When we talk about implicit intent, basically it communicates between two activities of different applications. So if you want to see over here, you're composing an email in your Gmail app, and you have a link for that particular site or something inside that mail. And when a person receives it, this person will click the link, and immediately you can see that this opens a browser. So you can see that when you click this link, it immediately shifts to Chrome, or by default, the browser that you are using in your phone or in your device. It could be Firefox, it could be the default browser that is provided by the manufacturer, or it could be Chrome, as it is a Google product, and it will open up in this particular different application. So this basically facilitates the communication between two activities of different application. And often you would have seen an case where you have a choice to be made. So basically it would ask complete action using Firefox or Chrome. So you would have probably seen this while you're using your phone. So what we looked into so far is we have looked into intents, and then we have looked into the different kinds of intents. We have looked into the explicit intent, and we have looked into implicit intent. So intents are basically used for three things. One is to start an activity, to start a service like open mail, a web browser, or calling functionality, and passing data from same application or different applications. So these are what intents are used for. So to learn about intent filters, this is one good material that I found out. And intent filter, basically we saw about what are the different kinds of intents and all, but an app, it requires a certain amount of filters that are required to be used. Like we are using a concept of filter over here, like we get to choose what is required for us. That is why this filter is being used. So just imagine a case where our app is turned on by some other functionality. Now, whether it should be permitted or not. For example, you are using a Instagram app to turn on your camera. So what is required is the Instagram needs to send a message to turn on the camera, and it is up to the system to decide whether this intent must be filtered or not. We can treat it as an example. I don't know if it is a part of the Instagram programming, but my concept is that if you have a certain restrictions for the intents that is required, like you are having a another app where you don't want that to access your camera. So if that app sends an intent to be to turn on your camera, then it should be filtered out. So intent filter is an expression in the manifest file, and it's used to specify the types of intents that the component would like to receive. So it is basically acting like a filter. Now intent filter can be defined in the manifest file using three components. One is action, one is category, and other is data. So you can take a look at this data over here to understand what each of this refers to. Now an intent filter, it can be one in number or it can be multiple. So if you look over here, you have your intent filter over here. So this intent filter, like I mentioned over there, it has got an action, category, and a data parameters that should be passed along with it. And now you have the intent filter being closed, and you can have multiple intent filters also. So if you look over here in this particular line of code, you will have one intent filter over here which has got its own specifications, and for another activity you will have another intent filter also. So an app can have multiple intent filters in its manifest file. So that is it about intent and intent filters. You can access this site for more information or my note for the information. Thing that we are going to look into is regarding permissions, and it is using uses and uses SDK features that we are granting permissions for different actions taking place in your particular program. So basically this is a format uses permission android name android.permission send SMS, where you are giving a permission for this particular feature to send SMS, which should be restricted if required. If it requires to use a sensor compass, it will have to use a statement like uses feature. So basically uses will be basically granting permissions to use software as well as hardware features in your system. So that requires your uses statement, and uses SDK will be basically referring to what would be the minimum SDK version that should be supporting this particular app, and what should be the target SDK version that would be supporting this particular app. We were speaking about uses keyword, and here you have an uses SDK which will define the minimum and maximum SDK version that is required for the program to run, or that should be supported by the device. Then you have the uses configuration, which would decide on whether it should be a touch screen, whether the navigation should be supported, and what is the keyboard required, and all these will be configuration features. And then you have the features coming up. Now this will basically specify whether this hardware should be connected to this particular app. So uses feature like NFC is given over here, so you could have an option like a compass or a sensor that I had mentioned or shown it before to you, or that is available in your notes. And then permissions would be taken by to grant permission. Like if you want to issue a message while taking permission for a camera, like it could be granted using this permission feature. So it is used to create permissions to restrict access to shared application components. So if it is up to the user to decide whether a camera should be used or not, it can be done using the permission. So the application field or node, it basically specifies the icon and title that you see for your app and all, like the you see a particular icon and the label in your menu, and then you see a similar structure in your app's first interface, and also all that would be covering under application field. And you can see that it contains the icon and logo, theme, name, etc., all these kind of things. So whatever happens on the menu will be guided by this particular field. So the icon, it will be coming from the drawable folder, then the theme that will be decided as given over here, and then the name of the application also will be true over here, and will be given or specified over here, and that is how this works. So what we have looked into right now is basically we have looked into Android Manifest.xml file and its components, and we have explained various different concepts. Now I'll be giving a document which contains the links for essential information, as well as you can refer to my notes as well as videos to have an understanding about this topic. So that would be it for this video.